Hi, and welcome to this PMP class. I designed this class specifically in mind for project managers who are interested in sitting for the PMP exam, but more importantly, interested in just focusing their time in studying the information that's needed for the exam. There's countless of pieces of information out there. Why spend hours and hours trying to sift through all that information and guess when you can actually step by step go through every single question that I studied when I passed on my first attempt? And I will show you how to do just that. We're going to make sure that no stone is unturned. So at the end of the day, you will save yourself the headache of trying to guess what's going to be on the exam. So if you're a project manager who's looking to sit for the PMP exam for the first try, or if you're a project manager who needs to retake the exam, learn all the questions that I actually studied when I passed the exam on the first try. And I know that you can actually do it too. Focus on what's actually on the exam versus spending hours on information that's not even on the exam. So I encourage you to consider this class. If you are interested, we can guarantee that at the end of the day, we're going to save you time and we're going to save you the headache by telling you exactly what you need to focus on. And I look forward to seeing you on the inside. Okay, so here we are with question number 21. Question number 21 states that during project execution, a project manager wants to involve the business lead before the other users are involved in the project. However, that business lead is also engaged in another big project and cannot join this project meeting. So the question is, what should the project manager do first? Option A, ask the delegate from the business lead to communicate and handle the transition work. Option B, summarize the changes and potential user impact in an email and send it to the business lead. Option C, adjust the project completion date until the business lead is able to engage in the discussion. Or option D, add resources to answer the questions that the user and the business lead will have during the project. We're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the questions, then resume the video with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got this answer correct. And the correct answer is A, that when faced with the situation that you want to include someone, such as this case, the business lead, and that business lead is not available to participate in your meetings. The first line of defense is that the project manager would ask a delegate from the business lead to communicate and handle the transition of the work. Hopefully you got that answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 22. Question number 22 states that for the second time in a week, one of the team members failed to deliver their assigned work. As a result, it is impossible for the team to achieve their agreed upon target. So the question is, what should the project manager do? Option A, insist that that team member maintain the agreed upon rate of output to maintain the deadline. Option B, review the project team's performance level and discuss areas for improvement. Option C, discuss the issue with the team member to identify the root cause and work to resolve it. Or option D, seek a replacement who has the same skill sets and availability as the team member. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer, and then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back with the actual answer, and hopefully you got it correct. And the correct answer is C. That when faced with one of your team members who has been failing to deliver the assigned work, the first line of defense that the project manager would do is to discuss the issue with the team member to identify the root cause and work to resolve it. As we've often said, when it comes to the PMP exam, anytime you see options there, and if it says, well, the PM would talk to their actual supervisor or the sponsor of the project, It's a safe bet that that is not going to be the correct answer. The correct answer that the PMP wants is to see that as a project manager, you are taking the due diligence to go ahead and reach out and communicate with that member to understand what the situation is. And then by understanding the situation, come up with ways to resolve it. Hopefully you got that answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 23. Question number 23 states, after releasing the first deliverable of the project, one of the impacted departments refused to use the system because they believe that it adds more work. So the question is, what could the project manager have done to actually prevent this situation? Option A, deployed a user survey. Option B, reviewed the organizational standard policies. Option C, create an escalation plan. Or option D, conducted a stakeholder analysis. And we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer, and then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and this was actually an interesting question, and hopefully you got this answer correct. The correct answer is D, that when faced with the situation that you now have delivered some requirements on a project and you find the feedback of those stakeholders not so welcoming, and in this case, they're basically saying, hey, it added more work. What should the project manager have done before this situation actually occurred in the attempt to ensure that this situation did not happen? Now, the correct answer is D, conducted a stakeholder analysis. Now, with this type of question, you're going to see if you face this on the PMP exam, this kind of question really comes down to looking at the various options that the PMP is giving you. In this case, the options here are that you would deploy a survey, review organizational standard policies, create an escalation plan, and in this case, conduct a stakeholder analysis. Now, if you look at the PMP question, they said, what would the PM have done to prevent this situation? All of the other situations of user surveys, standard policies, created escalation plans are not really applicable to this style of question. But what is applicable is understanding who your stakeholders are, understanding what is the method of communication they want, what departments, what titles, what impact that they are going to have on this specific project. And so by understanding your stakeholders initially, you can then preempt and resolve potential issues that you may face down the line. Hopefully you got this answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 24. Question number 24 states, in the execution phase of a large construction project, the contracted logistics company decided to actually increase their price as a result of the unavailability of the shipping containers. So the question is, what should the project manager do? Option A, assess the impact of the price increase given by the logistics company and follow the contract and global guidelines for the situation. Option B, agree to absorb the price increase because of the unavailability is beyond the control of the logistics company. Option C, abandon the contract with the logistics company and look for another company that has not increased their prices. Or option D, explain to the logistics company that the increase is not acceptable because they signed a contract. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer, and then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the correct answer. The correct answer is A. That when faced with a situation that you are working with a third-party vendor and you find the fact that prices have increased, the first line of defense that a PM should do is always assess the impact of the price increase given by this new company, and then follow the contract and guidelines for this situation. As we've often said, that is always the first line of defense, is to understand the situation, understand the impact, and then by understanding the situation and impact that it's going to have, be able to remedy the situation? Hopefully you got the answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 25. Question number 25 states, a new project needs to be kicked off in an organization that has regulatory requirements defined by their organizational governance process. So the question is, how should the project manager define the project governance? Option A, ask the project management office, aka PMO, if the regulatory requirements can be ignored. Option B, update the project governance to include the current regulatory requirements. Option C, customize all of the regulatory requirements to fit within the specific project governance. Or option D, update some of the regulatory requirements to fit within the project governance. And we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the question, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. And the correct answer is B. In this type of situation, you want to make sure that you actually read the PMP question. They're basically saying that an organization already has a defined governance process, and you then took on a project that has regulatory requirements. So the question is, when faced with the fact that the company has governance process and then this project has regulatory requirements, how should you then handle that type of situation? Now, if you look at the various options right away, you can eliminate option A because it says that the PM would just simply ignore the requirements or the regulatory requirements. Right away, you know that's not going to be the correct answer. Option C, it says that the PM would customize the regulatory requirements to fit within the organization's governance. You're not really going to go ahead and do that because regulatory requirements are as is. You're not going to bend the rules, so to speak. So that option is not feasible. Then option D, update some of the regulatory requirements, aka the keyword being some. Right away, you know that that is not the correct answer because you need to account for all the regulatory requirements. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to option B being the correct answer because what you're doing is you are taking those regulatory requirements and updating the project governance within your organization to account for those regulatory requirements. Now, I know that was a little bit of a tongue twister in this question and answers, but hopefully you got that answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 26. Question number 26 states that a project is nearing the completion of a sprint when the product owner announces that a local regulatory has banned part of the deliverable. So the question is, what should the project manager do? Option A, complete the sprint and seek a waiver from the regulator. Option B, perform a sprint risk assessment and analyze challenges. Option C, add more items to the sprint backlog that will add value. Or option D, complete the sprint but do not release the deliverables. Now we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer, and then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are, and hopefully you got the answer correct. And the correct answer is B. That when faced with the situation that you're just about to release those deliverables, and then oops, you find out that there's a little bit of a pickle and there's a ban on part of those deliverables. The PM would then perform a risk assessment and analyze the challenges. As we've often said, when it comes to the PMP exam, they are looking for the first line of defense from a project manager to understand the situation. Understanding the situation may be communicating with specific team members or the product owner, or in this case, it's really doing an assessment of the situation, and then by understanding the situation, being able to take it to the next level of resolving the situation. Hopefully you got that answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 27. Question number 27 states that a project team is finishing a sprint to deliver a key deliverable. Now, the project team tells the project manager that the deliverable does not meet the agreed project standards set out by the customer and insists on reworking the deliverable to meet those standards. This will delay the project by 2 weeks. So the question is, what should the project manager do? Option A, agree with the team that the best way forward is to improve the quality of the deliverable to meet the standards, even if it takes more time. Option B, let the team rework the deliverable and delay the delivery of the project by 2 weeks. Option C, ask the team to move forward with the deliverable with the best possible quality without extending the time. Or option D, meet with the sponsor to highlight the poor quality standards and ask for 2 weeks of additional time to rework the deliverable. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer, and then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. So when faced with a pickle and you find that the quality of standards are not there, or in this case, it's been communicated by the actual team, the question was, how should the project manager handle the situation in finding out that there may potentially be a 2-week delay? And the correct answer is A, that the PM really should agree with the team that the best way forward is to improve the quality of the deliverable to meet the standards, even if it takes more time. Now, with this type of PMP question, it's very important for you to understand that you need to look at the keywords. If you look at the various other options here, let's look at option D, meet with the sponsor to highlight the poor quality standards and ask for 2 weeks of additional time. That's not really the role of a sponsor to grant you additional time. If your developers need more time, that's the reality of the situation. You're not going to ask permission from the sponsor, and in this case, you notice that the PM never actually highlights the poor quality standards. Now, other things that I want to point out here is you notice here, ask the team to move forward in option C with the best possible quality outcome without extending the time. It's possible that, it is possible that the developers may actually complete the work within the defined parameters. But in this case, if it turns out that the time needs to be extended for whatever reason, that's the reality of the situation. So the PM does not have authority to say, guys, it has to be within these actual time frames. And then option B, let the team rework the deliverables and delay the delivery of the project by 2 weeks. Again, this is an implication that in fact there will be a 2-week delay. And if you look at the question, it's basically saying there may potentially be a 2-week delay. You're not 100% certain if the project will be delayed by 2 weeks. So again, with this one, it really is just looking at the various options here, looking at those keywords, understanding the stages, and then choosing the best answer, which is just agreeing with them that the deliverables need to be reworked to the standards. And if in the event it does take 2 weeks, then that's just a reality of the situation. Hopefully you got the answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 28. Question number 28 states that a project manager noticed that a talented team member remains passive and quiet during project meetings with the large project team and other stakeholders. Now, that team member interacts with the project manager quite well during one-on-one interactions. So the question is, what should the project manager do? Option A, praise the talkative team members for their input to encourage the quiet team member to speak up. Option B, encourage the quiet team member to actively participate during the team meetings. Option C, in the large team meetings, share the feedback given by the quiet team member during the one-on-ones. Or option D, take the laissez-faire approach and give the quiet team member time to work up the courage to speak up. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the question, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. And when faced with a situation that you have a project team member who just happens to be quiet, and especially in group settings, The PM should encourage that quiet team member to actively participate during the team meetings. Now, if you look at the other various options right away, you see here option C, it says that the PM with shared feedback given by that team member during one-on-ones. One-on-one meetings are notorious for being private conversations that you have with each other. So under no circumstances would the PM actually share private information with the actual group. And again, just in this case, taking the approach of letting the team member work up the courage. What the PMP is really looking for is, are you as a project manager taking the steps necessary to motivate your team members? Now, if you notice here in option B, it's encouraging that team member to participate. You're not necessarily forcing it upon them, but motivating your team members to do just that. So hopefully you got that answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 29. Question number 29 states that a customer approaches the product owner with a new requirement and asks for a rough estimation to implement it. The outline of that task would be similar to a prior deliverable. So the question is, what should the product owner do to properly inform the customer? Option A, analyze the current backlog and the backlog refinement to determine a gap from the fulfilling the requirement. Option B, check the work breakdown structure and the cost estimation for the similar requirement and provide an estimate for the actual new requirement. Option C, revisit the user story of the similar requirement, learn about its story point and velocity, and sketch out the time needed for this requirement. Or option D, refer to the lessons learned register where the experience and effort of former requirements should have been noted. We're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer, and then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. And the correct answer is C, that when faced with a situation that the actual request is for a rough estimation on how to implement a new deliverable on a project, the actual product owner would revisit the user story of a similar requirement, learn about its story points and velocity, and sketch out a time needed for this actual requirements. In this type of PMP question, it's very important to understand it's not a question of is the deliverable needed, but if you notice here with this PMP question, it's the ask was for a rough estimation to actually implement that deliverable. And those are the key words that you need to watch out for. Understand what the PMP question is actually asking you. And in this case, if you look at option D, lessons learned register, has nothing to do with actual estimation. Lessons learned register is simply what have you learned on previous projects and what would you do differently to improve and learn upon those experiences. Again, doing an analysis of your current backlog and backlog refinement does absolutely nothing for you coming up with an estimate to this specific requirement. So in faced with this requirement, you need to understand the actual requirement. How do you do that? By revisiting the user story of similar requirements to then understand what you may face and more importantly, come up with an actual timeline to implement that requirement. So hopefully you got that answer correct and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 30. Question number 30 states, a project lead is managing a project in the execution phase. Now, a new product owner was assigned and the project lead has had their first meeting with the new product owner. During the meeting, the new product owner indicated that the scope of the first release needs to be changed. So the question is, what should the project lead ask the product owner to do first? Option A, create a new backlog items and discuss them in the next sprint retrospective. Option B, create new backlog items and discuss them in the next sprint planning. Option C, review the new backlog items and discuss them in the next stand-up. And option D, review the priorities of the existing backlog items included in the release. So we're going to go ahead and actually pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer, and then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. And the correct answer is B, that you would create a new backlog items and discuss it in the next sprint planning. Now, with this type of question, the PMP is really looking to see if you understand the agile process in the various phases, and more importantly, what happens in them. In this case, if you look at the option A, it talks about discussing these items that want to be added to this project in the sprint retrospective. Now, the sprint retrospective is AKA lessons learned, which occurs after your actual development has been completed. It gives you the opportunity to look back and say, okay, what can we do differently and what can we learn from our situations? So that wouldn't necessarily occur there. Now, the correct answer is sprint planning, because in sprint planning, you look at your deliverables and you assess their ranking as far as priority, and more importantly, whether or not, in this case, if you have new backlog items, you can have conversations as far as the validity of those actual items that are being presented. Now, in case here, if you notice the next stand-ups dealing with daily Scrum meetings typically occur 15-minute increments each day. Those are where developers get on the call and they basically say what they're going to be doing, and more importantly, what they did yesterday, and if they have any impediments on the actual project. So again, it's by understanding the actual agile process in the various phases that you can then answer this question correctly. And hopefully you got that answer correct. And we look forward to seeing you into the next section.